begins a new weekly candle. Something that has never happened in the history of Bitcoin has just happened. And with Bitcoin setting a new low, the lowest since the June 17th bottom so far, is the crypto market on the verge of complete and utter dumpulation? Or are we about to get the biggest reach-around surprise switcheroo of a century in only 2 days at the FOMC meeting? Lay down, turn off the lights, and lock your door, because we are about to do something big. I'm literally foaming at the mouth, and these charts are speaking to us and showing us the way. Or perhaps it's just the voices in my head. Absolutely time-sensitive alerts. Take advantage of over $16,000 in deposit bonuses below, and additionally, for only 11 days left, simply by signing up with the BitGet link below, you will receive a 10 free USDT bonus just for signing up. Not for depositing, but for simply signing up, in addition to all the other signups. And that is, of course, as well for US traders on BitGet as well. And without any further magoos, let's dump in. Bitcoin has done something with this new weekly candle that is absolutely mind-numbing. And we're going to go through one by one all of these charts and try to paint a picture for you here. Because as we've been discussing, this is actually, like, honestly one of the most interesting times here, because everything looks so dumpy. In terms of all of the metrics people have used in the past or have created since the last bull market or bear market to try to pick the bottom, like, all of those have been showing us for months now that if we aren't at the bottom, well, I mean, actually by this point, everything is showing that we should have already bottomed. However, if we look at what is happening in the world and now what is on basically all of these charts, they're telling us the opposite. In fact, potentially not even close. And so this is just a very exciting time because everybody will tell you different things, right? There's basically every opinion on the planet going around here. We're going to crash down to oblivion. Well, I mean, there's not really many people telling us we're about to pump to new all-time highs because, again, it just does not look likely at this point. But starting off with the least interesting of these right now is the DXY, which continues to not do that much. And again, this will absolutely be ignited in just 2 days with the FOMC meeting. And that is a huge, I think the only possible switcheroo scenario is this FOMC meeting. And I'm going to be talking about that in just a few seconds here. But if we take a look at the entire cryptocurrency market, we are below this 200-week moving average. It's unprecedented. As you know, we already spent a lot of time there back in the summer, back in late June and early July, and we are revisiting it in a fashion that, you know, very similar potentially back to the last bear market. However, this is not that bearish of a chart, even though it obviously is very dumpy. That's not anything out of the ordinary. We've seen something similar to this. But if we take a look at Bitcoin's daily chart, as of today, we had a flash crash overnight down to right at about 18,000, almost exactly 18,200 on this chart on BITGET. So setting a lower low from these lows set back at the beginning of the month on the 6th. So obviously not the best news, but nothing out of the ordinary, nothing extremely bad. We still need about almost $1,000 dump to set lower lows of this entire bear market so far. But two things here, huge. On the Bitcoin weekly chart, we have never in Bitcoin's, at least since the 200 moving average has 200 weekly moving average has existed, we have not had this cross that at this very second you can see is simply a weekly candle away from happening right here. If you zoom in really close, you can see that it has not yet happened, but it looks as though they're basically touching if you just go back to a normal setting here. So closer than ever before. Every time we've had a bear market, we have seen the 21 weekly moving average go below the 50 weekly moving average. The green line go below the blue line. That's happened every time. And no surprise, that has happened during this bear market as well. However, what has never happened is the 21 weekly moving average go below the 200 week moving average. The green go below this yellow line. It has never happened. In fact, the 200 weekly moving average has historically been like the best place to buy in bear markets. It has marked the bottom of these bear markets. Even though they have wicks below it, it's basically like your best chance to get in. Now, keep in mind, we've been below the 200 weekly moving average for Bitcoin for 3 months now. since the middle of June. So 3 entire months. It's the longest we've ever been below this 200 weekly moving average. And as a result, for the first time in history, it looks as though, unless by some miracle we get a massive pump within the next week, which does not seem likely, it looks as though we're about to get the very first 21 weekly cross below the 200 weekly moving average ever for Bitcoin's chart. So we're really breaking records here, and it's absolutely gigantic in a very negative, dumpy way. And as well, potentially, in my opinion, showing us the potential best possibility of a pumpage accumulation opportunity ever. Or in terms of accumulation, probably one of the best times in history. Now, do I think that we're going to go lower? At this point, every technical signal is showing us that we will. And as well, the current economic situation is not helping. Not to mention, as we talked about yesterday in detail, the stock market just had another bearish cross. And you can see last time we got this cross, we dumped 20% in the stock market with SPX. So again, I mean, if you look back here, pretty much every time we've gotten these crosses in this trend of the past year, well, basically the entire year 2022, we've had it once, twice, and it has been the beginning of each massive dump. So you see it here, dump, here, dump. We just got that cross again. So if we get a dump at these levels, Bitcoin will be forced basically to dump. But there is one possibility. And so with the FOMC meeting being just 2 days away here, everybody's expecting a 75 basis point rate hike, a basis point increase, right? 75 basis points. Worst case scenario, if we get 100, it's all but guaranteed the markets will absolutely collapse. However, wouldn't it be funny here? Imagine how pissed everyone will be if we get a 50 BPS Fed rate hike, basically meaning the markets pump, with the markets expecting a 75 BPS, which is priced in. Everyone recognizes that. Getting a 50, and you'll see how Powell played the markets by using fear to get things to cool down. Wouldn't that be interesting? That is basically the only way that we will see a Bitcoin pump this week, in my opinion. It is possible we might get a small one if we get a 75 basis point hike simply because it's not as bad as the 100 that everyone's fearful of. But, 75, it's going to be rather boring in my opinion. If not, maybe even we could still see a dump. Either way, might get a small pump. We might get a big dump, which, again, everyone kind of realizes that the market is trending that way anyway. However, imagine if we get a 50, right? Let's say they're easing up on this. The Fed cannot just raise interest rates. There's a reason they're not just raising it 75 or 100 every single month. There's a reason for that, because it would destroy the economy, right? So, you see inflation's pretty high. People ask, well, why can't they just raise it 200 points, 300 points, 1,000 points? Just get inflation under control, and then we can be back on our merry way. Because if they did that, it would explode everything. Everything would implode, right? So they're treading carefully. Imagine if they did a 50 instead of 75, which is priced in. That is basically the only way we might see a short-term relief in these markets. As far as technical analysis on each individual chart, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really make any sense to do short-term or long-term, mid-term, any kind of really significant TA on all of these crypto altcoins or Bitcoin specifically, because it all is determined by what we know, pretty much these CPI readings and then the FOMC meetings. CPI readings and FOMC meetings. Those are like the two things dictating this market and the stock market, as well as the DXY. Those are like the four big things. You can watch the SPX, you can watch the DXY, you can wait for the CPI print every month, and you can wait for the FOMC meeting every month. Those are the four things that are dictating this market. And pretty much trying to do individual TA on Bitcoin in a vacuum makes no sense at this point. So with that being said, the one thing I think to watch out for, because that would be the biggest switcheroo, biggest surprise by far, is if we actually get a 50 basis point hike at this meeting. It would absolutely be, in my opinion, the least expected thing, right? 75 is basically everyone expects it. 100 is what everyone fears, but nobody's even considering a 50 basis point hike, which would give some relief to these markets in the short term. And ultimate relief would come with a pivot, which so far we don't really see any signs of that being likely by the Fed. To get in the chat, make sure to turn these absolutely time-sensitive alerts. If you're interested in shorting or longing this market, trading as we dump into oblivion, make sure to check out all the deposit bonuses below, and specifically with BitGet, in addition to the $8,000 up to $8,000 deposit bonus, just for the next 11 days until the end of the month. There's only, I think, 30 or 40 signups left for people to claim $10 of free USDT simply by putting in an email, putting in a password, and creating an account, and that's it. And without further ado, that's free.